Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you so much, Marcin, and welcome to everyone. There are a few housekeeping notes that we'd like to cover before we start the meeting. Firstly, I ask that each of you introduce yourselves every time you speak. This makes it a lot easier for the note taking and just to be able to identify who it is that's speaking, especially those of you who are off camera. Roll call is going to be taken on every action item. That's a best practice that we engage here, just a reminder. And also, this meeting's being recorded for minute-taking purposes, as well as for posting the recording of the proceedings on Access Health Connecticut's website, which is also important for public information. And and finally, there's a meeting line for those of you who call in. If there's this particular meeting line is for committee members, presenters, and for Access Health Connecticut staff only. If you happen to be on this call and you're not one of those three categories, please drop off and dial 1-860-840-2075, and the conference ID is 591-991. 510#. So, Marcin, if you would, with those few housekeeping notes, if you would call the roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Chair Steven Hernandez.
Present.
Grant Ritter.
Present.
Paul Philpott. Paul Lombardo.
Here.
Thank you. CC Woods. Matthew Brackman. And Mr. Sean King on behalf of Theodore Doolittle from OHA.
Good afternoon. I'm here.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if we could have the members of the Access Health Connecticut senior leadership team also introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. James Michelle, Access Health Connecticut.
Caroline Lee Ruette, Director of Marketing at Access Health Connecticut.
John Carbone, Director of Small Group Product Development and Broker Support.
Good afternoon, everyone. Glenn Jurgen, Director of Human Resources with Access Health Connecticut.
I think that concludes all of the SLT members who are present.
Great. Thank you so much. Marcin, is there any public comment to your knowledge?
There is no public comment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Marcin. And seeing none, we would like to entertain a motion, if you would, on the meeting minutes, motion to approve the February 9th, 2023 Strategy Committee regular meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. This is Grant.
Thank you, Grant. Is there a second? Second on the motion, going once?
Marcin, can I second?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can second,
Okay.
Mr. Lombardo. On this particular
right.
committee, you don't have a vote.
All right, thank you. Then I'll second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Marcin, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, Steven Hernandez.
Yes.
Grant Ritter.
Yes.
Paul Philpott. Paul Lombardo.
Yes.
CC Woods. Matthew Brackman. And Sean King.
I'll abstain.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. And now I turn over the mic to our capable CEO, James Michelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have three updates for the committee. We have Make It Unwind, just an update on where we are, what we're doing, and how things are going so far. And then we're going to talk about the 5 to 10 year strategic focus that we are developing. Mr. Chairman, I do have a first draft of what that's going to look like. So I will get that to you. And then once you give me the clearance, then I'll send it to the rest of the committee members. Then we'll give you a full presentation of everything at the next meeting, which will be in June. But today, you're going to get an overview, the themes of the path that we're on from Kara Mitchell from Menton Hoke. Again, they've been working with us to develop the 5 to 10 year strategy for Access Health as we chart our future going forward. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a quick update on where we are with the subsidiary and a couple other items, all right? So with that said, I'm gonna turn it over to Caroline Ruette, who's going to give us a quick update on where we are with the Medicaid Unwind. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Again, my name is Caroline Ruette. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Access Health Connecticut, and I'm going to provide an update for you all on where we stand for Medicaid unwinding. I did work collaboratively with several of my colleagues, and many of them are actually out on school vacation week. I'm sure your colleagues are too. So if there's anything outside of marketing in terms of questions, I'll do my best to answer those. If not, I will bring those back to the subject matter experts, and we'll be able to get back to you following the meeting. So let's start with the policy update. We are doing a 120-day special enrollment period for folks affected by Medicaid unwinding from the date where their coverage was lost. So typically, if somebody was going to qualify for a special enrollment period from a qualifying life event, they'd have about 60 days from the loss of coverage. We are expanding that time frame to try and help prevent those gaps in coverage. So right now, that's 120 days from the date of coverage loss. Moving on to some data about how we're doing now that unwinding has begun. I want to remind folks about the footnote that you see here on the screen. The data was pulled as of April 4th. So there is probably some updates here, and we'll look forward to updating this for the full board meeting in the coming weeks here. But as it stood as of April 4th, 11% of households impacted by the unwinding have actually come in manually and updated their applications since November 1st. And that's when the Department of Social Services really started to increase their messaging. And then we supported that messaging by amplifying it, right, with the Update Us So We Can Update You campaign. So good to see some movement there. And then in terms of just the early days of this first round of folks affected, as of April 4th, there were 46 new people enrolled in the Covered Connecticut program and 103 individuals enrolled in a qualified health plan without a Covered Connecticut benefit. So we're already seeing approximately 150 people here, right, that have moved over into a qualified health plan with or without a Covered Connecticut benefit. So we are seeing the transition of folks continuing to be covered, even if they aren't continue to be covered by Medicaid. Let's move on here for operations. As of March 1st, there was a new hire class over in the call center, and they started taking calls as of April 6th. And then some statistics. There's been a lot of talk, about the call center and making sure that we're staffed appropriately. And we're happy to report that in March, there were 77,527 calls managed by that call center. So a pretty big volume with an average wait time of just over a minute. So really, really happy with those wait times. And then as of April 3rd, there were just over 4,000 calls with an average wait time of less than half a minute. So doing really well over there, and happy to report that. We'll continue to monitor that. We know that is an area of concern, but really happy with those statistics right now. Before we move on, are there any questions about policy, the data here, or our call center? All right, hearing none. Martin, can you move on? Excellent. All right, so this is pretty copy heavy on this slide, but really wanted to tell you what we're doing from an outreach and a marketing perspective. So we'll start with health equity and outreach. There's 15 new call center reps trained to do enrollments actually in the field, and they started as of March 31st. So really happy to report that we have that increase in manpower to actually help people on a one-on-one basis. Our team is planning enrollment fairs. So those are those in-person activations where we stand up those little fairs in several towns across the state. And the target launch date for those events is in June. And they're going to rotate to community health center locations as well as our navigator sites. In the interim, while we don't have those up and running yet, we want to remind folks that the consumers currently have access to more than 500 brokers and 130 certified application counselors throughout the state that can assist with those in-person enrollment needs. In addition, the team is working to keep consumers and community partners informed. They're doing monthly educational presentations as well as those quarterly in-person meetings. They're soliciting feedback from certified application counselors, brokers, et cetera. This is the first time that we've done unwinding, right? And so we want to make sure that we're learning about what's working and what's not working so that we can adjust those plans on the fly. And then moving down into marketing, the more traditional advertising and direct-to-consumer communications, we started by issuing a joint press release with the Department of Social Services on March 27th. That did include quotes from leadership on both teams. We agreed to the language. So we're working very collaboratively again to make sure that we have some consistent messaging and positioning and that we're a united front here about this particular topic. We're also working on our creative concepts for the advertising campaign we've been discussing for a while now. And that will include TV, radio, billboards, some potential other out-of-home activations, including signage on transportation, things like buses. We're going to have some print ads, particularly those that reach the hardest to reach communities, right, our minority papers. It will also be supported by social media and digital activations as well. This campaign is set to launch on June 1st, and it will follow an extension of the Department of Social Services Update Us So We Can Update You campaign. Over the last couple of months, it was communicated that that campaign was scheduled to end around this time frame, but they are actually extending that campaign so it bridges the gap until the new campaign can be launched. So really happy about our efforts to coordinate with the Department of Social Services on that front as well. In addition, we've heard some really great feedback, and so some of the things that are below here that we've done have been in response to requests. So happy to tell you that we have made updates to our homepage on the Manage My Account and the Manage My Account page on our website to more directly reflect specific instructions about how people can go in and update their contact information in their application so that we can stay in the best contact with them and that they can remain covered. So there's been updates on our homepage section as well as that Manage My Account webpage. We've also launched a new blog post, again, with specific instructions about how to keep things updated in terms of information so that people can keep their contact information updated as well as keep their coverage. So that's featured throughout our website, but also on a blog post. And we have a couple of knowledge-based article updates too. Ultimately, what we mean is we are really working hard to make sure so many different areas of our website have this type of information. So no matter where people are searching for it, it will render for them and they will get what they need. Additionally, we're working with the Department of Social Services to develop new collateral. So we're talking about one-pagers, handouts, things that can be tangibly given to community partners, brokers, CACs, folks who communicate directly with customers that they can bring home with instructions, similar to what they'll find in a blog post, et cetera, about how to update their contact information and maintain their coverage. And we are working directly with DSS to make sure that our language matches theirs. So no matter what branding is on it, and in many places we're co-branding these documents, that they match up with one another. We continue to also support the Department of Social Services and the Update Us to Update You campaign with social media support. And lastly, we are planning a direct-to-consumer marketing effort to the approximately 95,000 audience projected to become either eligible for Covered Connecticut or a qualified health plan. So as you may recall from previous presentations, the Department of Social Services is going to send out 2 rounds of direct mail to these folks, as well as email and text messaging if people have opted in, to the total population impacted by unwinding. We're going to take it a step further. And so for those folks who are projected to be eligible for Covered Connecticut or a QHP, we're going to hit them with 2 rounds of direct mail as well and follow up with email and text messaging if those folks have opted into us as well. So there's a portion of this population, right, that's going to be hit 4 times with direct mail pieces. Another reason why it's so important to have that contact information updated so that we can reach out to them. And then we are following up, like I said, with email and text messaging to these folks if they've given us information as well. So lots of moving parts, but really excited about the progress that we've made as we're getting this off the ground. And I will pause here for questions.
Thank you. No questions from me. I don't know whether there are any questions from anyone else.
All right, then I will yield the floor to the rest of the presentations. Thank you very much for your time and your attention.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, through you, I've asked Carol Mitchell for mentioning to give an overview of where we are, highlights where we are, and I think some of the areas that we are focused on, some of the ideas that have come up, really very creative. My entire team has been amazing and bold in our approach to help Connecticut residents improve the quality of life through healthcare and also on other avenues as well. And one of our primary focus very quickly, our technology has got to be upgraded, so it makes it a lot easier. So that's going to be a major focus for us going forward, what we are calling 10 clicks or less. So 10 clicks, you are enrolled, 10 clicks or less to get enrolled. as a guidance for us. So again, we'll give you a quick, Kara, thank you.
Thank you, James. Kara Mitchell, principal with Minson Hoke. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly just to walk through a few quick slides that will help guide the discussion today. Just to ground us back in what the process was that we were following from a strategic planning perspective, we started with understanding some external viewpoints. We wanted to make sure that the planning process was not operating in a vacuum and that we were considering those perspectives of stakeholders and of our customers and consumers at large in the state. So we audited existing primary research that has been completed over the last few years, which gave us a lot of great information, as well as some secondary research that we've leaned on to help understand culturally where certain perspectives land and lie today. We also conducted the stakeholder interviews with board and strategy committee members. Many of you were obviously part of that, so thank you very much, and that has been completed. We then moved into our first session where we gathered with the senior leadership team. We talked about design thinking and strategy overall, kind of setting a tone for what we wanted to accomplish through this process. We reviewed all of the thought starters that were gleaned from the external viewpoints, and so how those would play a role in the strategic planning process. And then we prepared and discussed what we wanted to accomplish as part of that second session and some of the homework that needed to be accomplished between session 1 and 2. The senior leadership team did an amazing job brainstorming and bringing ideas to the table for us to be able to ideate in the second session. And so in that session, the goal was to build the key themes and strategic priorities for the next 5 to 10 years, as James mentioned. We were able to talk about some business goals that we needed to accomplish. We really highlighted some of the audience needs and prioritized the audiences and started to talk about the value proposition and some of the key strategic areas and profile of the organization that are important to us as we move forward, planning for the next 5 to 10 years. You'll each recall, I'm not going to go into these in detail, but in the last session together, we talked about the 5 key implications from some of the interviews that we held with board and strategy plan members, which were a key part of the discussion that we went into as part of session 1 and session 2's planning. Ultimately, the goal that came out of the session overview and what we want this strategic plan to be able to accomplish is helping transition the organization from meeting the current needs of the market to more proactively anticipating and engaging the market, ultimately working toward improving health outcomes for the next 10 years. And so we've had great success from the last 10 years, but we heard very clearly, how do we lean in? How do we get more proactive? And how do we start to really move some of those hard to move populations? And so ultimately that helps benefit the greater whole. And how can we demonstrate the success that Access Health is having in the greater whole overall? The outcome of the session is ultimately developing the strategic priorities blueprint, as we call it. And so this identifies what the strategic priorities should be for the organization. It highlights some key initiatives that were discussed as part of the sessions, but those priorities serve as a guidepost for the organization for the next 5 to 10 years. Obviously, understanding that lots will change over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, but those priorities are really solid, and you'll see those, obviously, as James alluded to, in the coming weeks, to help us serve as that guidepost, as I said, for the next 5 to 10 years. And so let's take a look at what some of those themes were. As Jane mentioned, we really focused in on 4 areas that helped to serve as the framework for us as we planned the strategic priorities. And those were evaluating the company of Access Health, evaluating the customer, evaluating the category overall, and evaluating ultimately culturally things that we need to be considering. And so as a company, these are some of the key truths that we can leverage about the brand that are important to us as we think about being more proactive over the next 5 to 10 years. While we're part of a system that many don't trust, our research has showed us that Access Health brand has earned strong trust scores. And we're not risk averse as an organization. Our quasi culture emboldens us and allows us to do things. We understand the nuances of the lives of the people we serve, and we've transitioned from startup to maturity, but yet our systems haven't kept up to serve our customer. Jane's just alluded to that. So these are some interesting tensions that we had to explore, which served again as a good framework when we brainstormed and started to build out the strategic priorities. From a customer perspective, we talked about some key data points from an overall customer base perspective. 30% of our QHP participants are 55 plus, and 50% of overall customer base is 45 plus. So when you think about that, that's a really large aging population. What does that mean ultimately for the organization? Where can we lean in to bring in younger? And or what do we do with the aging population potentially to maintain relationships or support them as their healthcare needs continue to change? And we know that 14% of our population isn't providing income data, so they're not qualifying for subsidies today. So these were some key metrics that were important to us as we started to think about planning in those priorities. Ultimately, we broke down our prospective customer base into 3 key segments based on the federal poverty level from which they fall within: the most at-risk population, the working class population, and the better off population. And each had varying degrees of health literacy, perspectives, trust, and ability to think short-term versus long-term. All key important things for us to consider from a psychographic perspective. So we're looking more deeply at our audience, not just from a demographic perspective, but really understanding how we can motivate them. And so continuing to lean in, as we heard from all of you, on these micro segments, micro markets, whether that's from a geographic perspective, et cetera. So we start to move those hard to move populations. And all audiences need to be considered and navigated because they all bring different perspectives to make up what Access Health represents. From a cultural perspective, we're conditioned as a society to expect platforms and systems to deliver better customer experiences. If Netflix can tell me what the next movie is that I should be watching, I would certainly hope that when I'm making a really important decision like healthcare, I could have that experience be served a little bit differently. And so as James called out, key theme, you'll see both from a company perspective and a cultural perspective. And intergovernmental silos continue to be a challenge and impede data sharing, but the team is leaning in. Caroline just talked about in the Medicaid unwinding the work and the collaboration with DSS. And so how do we keep opening up those opportunities? Federal mandates for government to use technology to provide a better citizenry experience are coming forward. That's terminology that's been released by the White House. And so how do we lean into some of that? How do we think about those experiences that we can offer that help to make this more seamless? And if we're part of a system that many don't trust, but we have earned trust, what can our role be to help move people along on this journey? And interestingly enough, through Edelman's trust survey, so that secondary research that we were reviewing, many business leaders and non-government leaders are now seen as unifiers, while government leaders are seen as divided force that pulls people apart. And this is from the recent research study that was released, their trust barometer. And so that's interesting. If we're a quasi and that is emboldening us, what does that mean for our role, and how can we support that unification that needs to happen, working more closely and breaking down some of those silos? And from a category perspective, I can't believe I even got this down to just 4 or 5 bullets, but I think the biggest piece is healthcare is 20% of our economy. It attracts significant attention right now. And we know from our primary research, from secondary research, there is heavy racial bias that adversely affects the healthcare system. And again, as that unifier, what role can we be playing as we think about these strategic priorities? There's a constant fight and ownership over the healthcare chain across the board. And we talked about there is real potential for a big new brand to disrupt this entire system. If we think about better customer experiences, how do we be proactive? How do we create sustainability for the Access Health Connecticut brand long term, knowing that disruption is likely to happen? How can we be on the forefront to support our customers as this category continues to shift and evolve? Because coverage and that protection is the most important. And we know that AI will quickly be a major disruptor and provide valuable data to better serve people. And how can we lean in? How do we work with what we know some of those changes to be? So I'll pause there for a second and see if anybody has any questions.
Mr. Chairman, as you can see, we have a lot going on in each of the boxes that Kara spoke to. There's a lot more information behind each one of them, which I will forward to you later on today or tomorrow. After your review, then I'll send it to the rest of the committee.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you both.
Thank
Thank
you.
Even your overview is very robust. So looking forward to looking at the details, but it's very exciting that you're taking so much of, not only the data that you collected, but so much of the experience of those that have been participating, to really figure out how we move forward. So thank you. Really appreciate that.
Thank
We
you.
are keeping our eyes on the disruptors,
Yeah.
the Googles and the Amazons. When they if and when, but it's not a question of if, it's when they enter the healthcare continuum.
Right.
It's going to be a major disruption, and we want to make sure we are positioned to take advantage of that and help those who typically are left behind when disruption happens. And then many people benefit, but a lot of people get left behind.
Right.
We want to make sure our customers do not get left behind. So we want to be that conduit to funnel the disruption benefits to them as well.
That's great. Thank you, James.
Yes, sir. So we have two strategic initiatives, the Broker Academy. John?
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Carbone, Director of Small Group, Product Development, and Broker Support. Today, I'm happy to give you a quick update on behalf of our Director of Health Equity and Outreach, Tammy Hedricks, regarding our second-year Broker Academy. I'd like to start off to talk a little bit about the number of individuals that applied to participate in this year's Broker Academy. As of today, we currently have 70 individuals that have asked to join this year's program. Over the next several minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about the statistics and demographic information. So if anybody has any questions during that process, don't hesitate to jump in and ask. We do have a lot of statistics here, and I know it could be a lot, but I'm more than happy and willing to answer any question that I can. So starting in January, as we developed a web page for the Broker Academy for individuals to go in there and be able to kind of sift through the information and see if this is something they are interested in. We had 1,480 unique visitors. As you can see, as our marketing and outreach team continue to promote it, the uptick went up to 1,847 for February. Again, our marketing and outreach team continued to pound the pavement, and I'm happy to give you the March numbers that we finally received them. Our traffic that are unique individuals that have went to our website have been 3,689. So we have some significant traffic to the website, and we're able to kind of get those 70 individuals, in the hopper, which we're excited, and we're excited to grow that even further. So to understand who's coming into it and who these 70 different individuals are, our referral stats are 28% straight to the Access It website. No one's promoted them. They just went there based on some information that they may have heard. 25% of them from our community organizers. 24% of them are from our friends and families and mentors. Those mentors can be the Broker Academy mentors from last year's and other individuals in the community. 5% from just basically kind of watching our board meetings or other avenues, and another 5% from our email campaigns that we do send out, periodically throughout the last 3-4 months. The gender of this population also is 50% female, 26% male, 21% of them chose not to identify. These stats are pretty in line from last year, so we are still getting the same kind of population that is coming through that. So we're just excited about the individuals and how they're excited about joining this year's program too. Ethnicity, we have 53% of them are African American, 23% of them chose not to identify in any way. 21% are Hispanic Latino, 11% Asian, 7% white. These 70 different individuals currently at the moment are kind of, they're scattered throughout Connecticut, but the main focus is 41% of them are in Harford County, 26% of them are in Fairfield County, and 17% of them are in New Haven County. As we've kind of started, working on this in the beginning of January to make sure we had a big long runway into coming into our sessions in June, our outreach team has basically set up 6 informational sessions. In these informational sessions, they explained what the Broker Academy was, how it was going to help them, how we needed them to participate in this avenue, in these sessions. So those 6 sessions that were throughout the last 2 to 3 months had 107 attendees in there. And as you can see, as the numbers started increasing on the web traffic, our application deadline date was March 31st. We chose to extend that to April 30th because of the amount of individuals that were hitting our traffic. And we felt like we wanted to get some more individuals in the pipeline to see if we can expand the classes out. Currently, right now, we have 2 class locations, one in Hartford at our Capital Community Center. Our second one is also in Capital Community College, and our second one is in New Haven at Gateway Community College. As we go through these next 30 days, if we feel that we may need another site or we need to expand this out, we're going to be more than happy to entertain that. There are different types of logistics. We will need to get another teacher from our Kaplan University training, but those are little hurdles and good problems to have. So as we go through the interview process, right now there's a team of 3 that are going through the 70 interviews that we're going to be setting up throughout the next couple of weeks. We will basically, once we are accepting them in the program and they go through all the background checks and all the information and they have all their letters of recommendations, we will be setting up 4 pre-training meeting classes. And those classes are basically to let them know what they're going to expect on those dates that we start our health and life training on June 5th through 9th, which again is going to be ran by our vendor Kaplan again. So we're really excited to have them. They did an incredible job last year, and we're looking forward to do that. So hopefully next time around, we'll have some updated information for you. But if anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to help.
Mr. Chairman, we're excited about the second year for the Broker Academy. We learned so much from the first year. As successful as that was, we anticipate that this will be even more successful as we apply the lessons learned from year 1.
Thank you, James. I do have a question, and I don't know whether it's for you or for Mr. Carbone, but your scale-up strategy across the state, is there a strategy to scale to other parts of the state at this point? Have you thought about what that might look like and where? I've been getting calls from people in different parts of the state, different corners of the state who have heard about the Broker Academy, are excited about possibilities, and are just interested. So I wonder what your strategy is there.
So,
very
quickly, we are looking at Waterbury as a potential expansion because we have gotten some calls, some requests. As we invest in making decisions, that we're trying to get a critical mass in certain areas. So our threshold is about 7 to 10. If we get 7 to 10 people in one area, we'll create a new class in that space, in that area, because it's the classes are not cheap; they're very expensive, right? So to do just for 1 or 2, 3, again, we want to include as many people as possible, but we also have to be very good stewards of the resources that the board entrusts us with. So that'll be the biggest part of our decision. But we encourage them. That's why we try to centralize the training, Hartford and New Haven, where the traffic transportation is fairly reasonable to get to and from. And also, but Waterbury is something that we're looking at very closely. We've gotten some requests. If we once we have enough people there, we'll create a new class in Waterbury, and that'll give people an opportunity from the Torrington space to come to Waterbury for that training as well. John, I don't know if you're going to add anything else.
No, James, you nailed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, the subsidiary, at this point, until we complete the 5 to 10 year strategy, the subsidiary is going to be a tool that we're going to deploy to help us execute the 5 to 10 year strategy. So everything we've done so far is not lost. We're just going to put it on hold until the strategy is completed. Then there are certain areas that a subsidiary would be immensely helpful in helping us to execute. So everything we've done so far is in place. We're just going to pause until we get the 5 to 10 year strategy, and then the subsidiary will become one of the tools that we will leverage to execute the some of the strategic focus that we want to do, because some of the work that the strategy is going to guide us down cannot be done through Access Health, simply because of the limitations of the ACA. So we will have to create a subsidiary that's ultimately, with the board's approval, become a 501c3, a charitable organization, so we could get grants to do a lot of the work, that a lot of the areas that we want to focus on to help improve the quality of life and quality of health of connected residents, our customers. And I want to stress that when I say our customers, we're looking at everybody, including Medicaid, the Medicaid population, as part of our base customers, for the purpose of strategic focus. Mr. Chairman, I think you are on mute. You are muted, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry about that. I think that seems a prudent course, especially given the fact that so much of this really relies on a real understanding of the strategy moving forward. And in some ways, what you're doing is, once you build a case for the strategy moving forward, the strategic plan, then the tools at your disposal are really critical. And this is one of your possible tools at your disposal. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Great.
This
Is there
concludes our
anything,
presentation,
is there
Mr.
anything
Chairman.
further? Great. Great. Seeing nothing further, I wonder if there are any thoughts or reflections from any of my co-members. Otherwise, we would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, motion to adjourn. This is Grant.
Thank you, Grant.
Seconded by Paul Lombardo.
Thank you, Paul. Marcin, if you could take a roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Steven Hernandez,
Yes, thank you.
Ron Ritter,
Yes.
Paul Philpott, Paul Lombardo,
Yes.
CC Woods, Matthew Brackman, and Sean King.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the great updates, and thank you all for the wonderful presentations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.